Welcome to Boxcars, 40K podcast, season 2, episode 5. I'm Marcin and I'm playing Adeptus Custodes, and my co-host Ryan is also playing Adeptus Custodes.
Yes, sir.
Not changing anytime soon, right, Ryan?
No, I'm sticking with them. I'm going to stick with them. I think my goal is to just play Adeptus Custodes. I've dabbled in soup, and I've considered kind of going back to maybe some soup at some point. Just to kind of keep a project on the table, because I'm just about finished with my my full Adeptus Custodes army. Like I don't plan on buying too many more models for Adeptus Custodes. I have some Benatari on the way. Still waiting on those guys. But beyond that, I'm pretty set with what I got right now, especially at 2,000 points. I've got about 4,500 points of Adeptus Custodes, so I'm already not using a bunch of my stuff frequently. So I'm kind of at that point where soup is not really a thing. But my fiance, she's coming from Pakistan, and we're still kind of working on visa stuff. But she's been pretty excited because she likes to paint. So I bought her about 2/3 of a sister's army. So when she gets here, we're going to be playing together a lot, and I think we're going to end up souping some sisters and some Adeptus Custodes as our as one of our things. So
cool.
So looking forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to get my wife into wargaming, but the best I can do is get her to play some board games. The war games are too much for her. So
it is.
I'll have to wait until my son is like 10 maybe, and then I'll have so 5 more years, and I have somebody to play at home.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm thankful because my fiance, she likes the game. We play games online to pass the time quite often. So
cool.
She's a little bit of a gamer at heart, so she's but she's also a little bit nervous. I've kind of tried to explain some things to her at times, and I think she already kind of feels that way to a certain degree of just being a little bit overwhelmed, by it all. So gonna try to, just gonna try to ease it in, a little bit. I think she's gonna enjoy the painting aspect, a little bit more than gaming. But I think if she has some success in it, I think if she wins some games, because she's a winner, she likes to likes to play to win, and it's really cool because I taught her to play Words with Friends online, and she's from Pakistan, so English is her second language. And initially she lost a lot, and she kind of got a little bit discouraged, but she kept at it, and now she consistently beats me at Words with Friends. And it's funny because I should know English better, but it's one of those things of like, it's the fact that she doesn't know English helps her a lot, because she finds all these janky words, because she just tries combinations basically. Doesn't know the meanings of the word, but she has that tactical sense of like, this is what I need to do to try to get the most points possible. And so she finds the combinations that I miss, because I'm looking to spell words that I know, and she's just looking for combinations of letters. So as kind of a default setting. So she's actually doing really good. And she likes to win, and she likes to play we like to play as a team as well. So I think that'll translate. I think it can translate.
If she has a winner's mindset, then she'll probably do good eventually, because the 40K is a pretty easy game to learn the basics, but it's very hard to master, because there is a lot of nuance and a lot of things you have to learn, not only about your army but about the opponent's armies as well. So that's a typical like easy game to learn, difficult game to master, right?
Yep. That's one of the reasons why I've always enjoyed it, I think, so much, is that very thing. It's a challenge, but it's also not so challenging, that you can't play it socially, or for like just pure fun, So yeah, man.
Yeah. Also, I saw on your Facebook a nice motivational video, I have a tip for anyone who doubts their skill at playing or whatever they do, to just watch sometimes a motivational video. It's really some people might say that that doesn't work, but whenever I was doing triathlon, or I'm doing triathlon, but whenever I'm in doubt and I don't have any strength to train, I just watch some motivational videos from people who overcame very difficult odds, and it's incredible what people can do, and it's just almost everyone can do the same. It's just dedication and time and effort you have to put in, and you can do it. So I was actually at work when you posted it, or when I saw the notification that it was posted, and I took a 10-minute break to just watch it awesome. and remind myself that people are great, and
good.
Yeah, that was nice.
I'm glad it helped. Yeah, I watch them for the same reasons, and yeah, I mean I'm happy to hear that, because a lot of times, I more often than not, honestly, I post for myself. Kind of remind me. So I kind of a lot of times will retroactively post things like that, where I might not I might be feeling good, and I'll see a video like that, and I'll watch it more as a confirmation thing. But then I'll also post it on my wall, because I know, everybody feels down sometimes, or hit those walls, and it's nice to have that in the back burner, or just kind of in the hopper, so that I know where to find it. Because sometimes those videos, sometimes you don't find them when you're looking for them. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Really needing that, and boom, you're getting caught in other things or whatever, distracted or whatever, and it is kind of nice to just be able to when I'm feeling down or whatever, I can just hit up the wall, and there it is. I can watch that video again or whatever. So I'm really glad to hear, that it benefited you. That makes me feel all the more ready and diligent to keep posting up, man.
Yeah, that was nice, really. Also nice story, incredible story.
Yeah.
So that was something to worth to listen to. Yeah, but let's get back to 40K. You've been, you are so lucky that you are in the area where there are still tournaments, or again tournaments.
Relatively speaking, yes. Pennsylvania has really cracked down. One of the GTs I was supposed to be in.
Okay.
Where I was hoping to play a lot of guys that I've either played before that lost to, or people who I've been wanting to play for a long time. It was actually canceled. Because of the new COVID restrictions coming back in the States.
Yeah. So you've got the second wave right now, because that's...
Yeah, we've had the second wave for a while, but finally some things are kicking in as far as, the legislation sort of catching up. But so yeah, I mean it's been a little bit slow the last few weeks, but I am registered for 3 GTs actually.
Whoa.
Yeah, 3 weeks in a row. Another Ironman, which is so it'll be 5. So hopefully this one will pan out. So it's 5 games in one day. So it's not quite as impressive as the last one, or as quite as much. I didn't think it was that bad, but for a lot of people that's a lot. To play 10 games at 40K in 2 days is a lot for a lot of people. I'm all into it, so it wasn't too bad for me, but so there's one of those, and then there's 2 just standard GTs, all in the South. 2 of them are in Georgia, and then the Ironman is in Florida. So my plan is to basically drive. So for me, it'll actually only be about 2 weeks, because it'll be a Saturday in the middle, and then a third Saturday, but then I'll be driving back. So it'll be 3 tournaments in 2 weeks, a little bit over 2 weeks time. 3 GTs, a lot of big names are supposed to be there, like John Lennon. I'm not sure if any of the other part of War guys, Mark Perry, who I also got to play when I went down for this for the Ironman GT that I did mention, which was great. Playing him was really good, very tactical, very tactical game. So hopefully hopefully those ones will work out a little bit better than this last one. But I'm looking forward to playing that. But then after that, I'm going to take a little bit of a break myself. I'm probably going to take a couple months off. I might go to an odd RTT or something, just to kind of stay sharp and in it, but kind of getting to that point where
everybody needs a break sometime, right?
break might be good for me.
Especially that you invested a lot of time and a lot of effort in last month. So
yeah, yep, definitely.
Okay, let's dive into your games from the last tournament you went to.
Yeah. So yes, sir. So it's been a little while. So I think I'm just going to focus on a couple of the games because like it was 10 games, right? So
exactly. Yeah, let's take the most interesting ones.
So
want to share.
We'll start out. I was able to play John Moore. I'm not sure who's he. I can't remember who he's affiliated with exactly, but he brought a really strong Blood Angels list, very similar to what the Art of War guys are playing right now for their Space Marines and Blood Angels and White Scars and things. So lots of Blade Guard, big units of Inceptors, some Primaris troop choice stuff, intercessors or incessors or infiltrators.
So the Blood Angels without Sanguinary Guard?
He did have Sanguinary Guard, yeah. He did have Sanguinary Guard as well. So a lot of the men, and then of course the Vanguard vets with the Lightning Claw and the Storm Shield, so very kind of standard meta that you kind of see going on right now.
Yeah.
And I actually played him twice. So I played him the first day and was able to win by a fairly decent margin. And it was funny because, you don't generally expect to play the same people, like back to back like that. But then I ended up playing them the next day. And I made the mistake of giving him a bunch of advice of basically how to beat me next time. And then I ended up playing him the next day. And then he beat me by like 3 points or something like that. The next day. So, but that was really great. I really enjoyed our two games. But that first game, I can't remember the mission. I can't remember too much of the details other than I basically screened out my Virtus Praetors, made sure to target those Inceptors. So I had some advantages since, the Virtus Praetors have a better movement than the Inceptors, and they have some more targeting or targetable shooting. That's probably not the right word. More accurate.
Yeah.
Sort of targeted shooting, I guess. So I was able to use the greater range as well. 24 versus 18 inches.
Yeah. So did he have plasma inceptors? I assume.
Yeah. So he had two
he did
units.
Put them on the table, not in the deep strike.
Yes, sir. So that was one of the things that was probably the main thing that I counseled him on. For the reason why I won the game was because he deployed them on the table.
Yeah.
I was actually really kind of shocked that he didn't, try to alpha strike, especially against an army with Virtus Praetors, because I just capitalized on their greater movement, their greater range, so I was able to basically alpha strike his Inceptors at my convenience by just playing deep into my deployment zone, letting him kind of come forward to take center board, and then I just moved up and just targeted and pretty much killed both units, and then he's got like no shooting left, so I can basically dance around his power units until I want to charge them, after I whittle them down a little bit or whatever, my Alpha Strike came in and did some work as well. My two Dreadnoughts, they did some work. So it was a really great game. That was the list I was playing at the time was 2 units of 5 Virtus Praetors, 2 units of 3 Sagittarum, and then 2 Achilles Dreadnoughts, and then 2 Bike Captains. So very symmetrical list, very kind of standard. Standard in the sense there wasn't a lot of tricky jank or anything I was really trying to pull. I was playing Castellan's Mark, I think was probably the trickiest thing I did. But even that is pretty blunt and compared to things that Harlequins and Ultramarines can do with redeploy.
It is because it's pretty, how to say, if you have an opponent that is careful, he will know who you will redeploy and what are your options, right? It's just 1 unit and 1 captain, so wherever he stands, he will just take 1 unit.
Right. It's fairly easy in comparison to kind of anticipate. The captain has to be positioned within 6 inches. So a lot of these other strats and stuff, you can just redeploy any unit. There's, but part of that too, does kind of play into the custodian theme, I think, because it does kind of, in a lot, like I found it honestly makes people overthink more than anything else, because the fact that they're just the whole deployment are like trying to figure out where you're going to put that bike captain does kind of distract them into making errors at times. And then a lot of times doesn't even have any play in it, but for a lot of, you've kind of added an equation to every deployment move he makes, because he's going to be thinking, okay, well, he could redeploy that unit. Is he going to redeploy that unit?
All right. So generally you would deploy your captain with Castellan's Mark as last, so he doesn't know until the end who you would redeploy. Yeah, okay.
Yep. And because my list was so symmetrical, so I had the 2 units of Sagittarum, and I just had the 2 units of 5 Virtus Praetors. Like, because it was so symmetrical, it was really hard to, like, I didn't just have 1 unit of Virtus Praetors where he could kind of figure that out. But, on the flip side of that, I only had, after putting my 2 Achilles Dreadnoughts in Deep Strike, I really only had six places. So more often than not, against things like Harlequins and stuff, or Blood Angels that have a lot of, MSU units, like, he'd be he'd only have half of his army deployed. He could have easily held back. Like, if he wanted to even try to alpha strike me on the table, he could have easily held back his Inceptors, beyond, my final, putting my captain on the table. So, the Castellan's Mark, like I said, it's more of a psychological thing of just getting your opponent to kind of overthink a lot of stuff, and like to be constantly, more often than not, it's kind of ignored, though, I've found. It's kind of, it is what it is. And more often than not, though, it's still been marginally useful. Some would argue, a 3 can't replace a 3+ invulnerable save. But if I'm honest, there's some games where, I haven't had to roll a save the whole game for my bike captain. So,
yeah.
So, and I've literally won games on the back of Castellan's Mark. There's been games that I've literally won where I look back and go, yeah, pretty much that redeploy pretty much is what jacked up my opponent's deployment, and that's what basically guaranteed me the win. It could have gone a lot of different ways had that not been the case. Versus a 3-up invul save, I can't really think of any games that I played where making 3-up invulnerable saves just got me the game.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things of like, when it tanks, it's not a big deal because I still have a 4-up invul save. It's not like it doesn't have any, so I'm missing out on that 3-up to 4-up. But like, when it works, like, it really works. It really can give you some advantages during that gameplay. So
I think it goes back to a question of are you tending to or engage too early and engage with your captain, which I think in retrospect I've done many times too many, because I was banking on 3-up, 5-up, and I was thinking that my captain is invincible and he can stand there taking on everybody and killing the world. And in the end, okay, he will survive a lot. And don't get me wrong, even sometimes I gave him the winner of the blood game, so he would really stand a lot. The problem is he's not that killy, so it's just 5 attacks.
Yeah, if he was like flat 3 damage, or if he had like 8 attacks, something like that, like I could see that being more of like, this is really great, or if he had, like, you can get him up to 9 wounds, I guess, but even with the way that I've run him in the past, where I do the Castellan, or I do the Emperor's Companion and Slayer of the Unclean double whammy, which I've still pretty much done for the most part. He's really good. He can be killy, but he's not like Magnus killy.
Exactly.
He's not like a Spaceful Smash Captain post or pre nerf killy. Or even a Blood Angels character killy.
I've done in retrospect, I've done much better lately. Really not engaging that much with my Virtus Praetors and with my captain, just holding them back a bit, because whenever I engage them, they will just die, because they are resilient but not immortal. So
yeah. I think a lot of people are coming to that conclusion. I think overall, and I was the same way, when people first start playing Virtus Praetors, or they play them sort of experimentally, the tendency is to just charge them in and charge them up.
Yeah, because you need those.
You're like, I want to get them into combat.
Yeah, you need those 20 attacks, right?
Yeah.
you need to use them.
Like, yeah, and there's this thing of like, I'm wasting the points if they're not just over there immediately killing everything. Like, but yeah, I found the same thing of like playing them conservatively and in tandem with the rest of your army instead of just because there's, with the bike captain thing and like even the Vexilla, there's just, to me, there's in the Custodes meta, there's just too much like just charging in lone wolf style, It's just getting, while that's part of the lore a little bit of like we're lions, not, wolves kind of thing. There's that sense though, there's some very strong sense of like, well, there's still sort of this intuitive pack, of everyone kind of knows their role, but you're still working in a coordinated fashion kind of thing. And you're not just all hard charging in one direction, but you are like sort of intuitively, tactically, accomplishing the mission and doing that in a way that sort of transcends the standard, the sort of the standard rank and order file of other armies. But yeah, I had a great game against the Blood Angels both times. I think that was the key thing that won me the game was just conservatively playing those Virtus Praetors and just picking my times to strike with them and screening them well enough so they couldn't get just charged by a sanguinary guard, things like that, and then just using that alpha strike, to really kind of spread him out and sort of cloister him in the center. The center can definitely be a trap when fighting Custodes if you play them right. A lot of armies try to take the center, but Custodes, they have enough, especially Virtus Praetors, they have enough speed, to be able to push into the center, and have enough firepower to really kind of whittle you down without really being threatened, off of objectives and stuff. So, so I've been really trying to figure that in, and it's been working out. And the next game that I really wanted to talk about was against Rich Ziegler. So Rich Ziegler is the guy who won LVO last year. He's an Art of War guy. He's a really good player. Very smart. He's very calm. He's just like super chill the whole time. And I played a lot of people who they get nervous when they're playing in big tournaments, and like he's just calm as a cucumber the whole time.
Yeah.
Regardless
I've seen few of his games on YouTube, so I really admire his style of
he's
level of coolness.
Very level-headed guy. So it was just it was a great. I knew it was going to be a great learning experience for me going in. He definitely has a mastery of the game that is well beyond par. So I knew it was going to be a very challenging thing, and I knew also not to get kind of lulled. I did my best not to kind of get lulled into that false insecurity, because that's kind of what it does double as, of like, why is this guy so calm?
He knows something I didn't think about, right?
Yeah, I found that if like some really calm players, they kind of. You kind of can get lulled into that false sense of security of like, oh, no, this is going to be real chill and stuff. And then all of a sudden the game starts heating up and they're so really calm, and you're kind of like starting to lose your stuff a little bit because things are going sideways quick, and that's kind of how it went for us, I guess. He played a really good Necron, really strong Necron list, very warrior heavy, Silent King. I can't remember the name of the unit, but they were basically his jump pack version of infantry, 10-inch move. They had like some really short range shooting, decent in combat. I can't remember what they were called. But basically they were like floating tomb blades of some kind.
Yeah, I get the unit, but I don't remember the name either.
I can't remember the name, but yeah, like a harassing unit. He had like 3 to 5 of those to kind of pick up, engage on all fronts, and just to kind of scramble board control and do screening and things like that.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it. He had a couple of the characters on the command barges, one that was shooting, one that was a combat guy, and they just kind of floated around doing kind of like quick reaction stuff. So like anytime I tried to deep strike, they were just kind of there to kind of counterattack. He played it really tight. I messed up by basically trying to play in to his army hard and strong, because I knew because he had the mid game deep strike relic, very common. I can't remember what it's called either. Where he can pick up his crypto tech in one unit of warriors or any unit, and any infantry probably. I'm not sure of the rules, but so I was like, I need to play into these warriors hard. I need to play into the Silent King fast, and I need to kind of do that with the Vertus Praetors, and which was kind of a mistake, because I think he kind of figured that playing Adeptus Custodes, and he really kind of did great in his counterattack. I had some nominal success sort of positioning on him, but he positioned very well to make it difficult for me to just do that. And then once I was able to actually punch into him, it went great, but he had his counterattack very well positioned to kind of, after that kind of erosion happened, to kind of punch back hard enough to, get back board control and kind of regain the game. So I should have played a little more asymmetrically, I think, into the board control. He had a big, he had one of his vehicles on the left side that I kind of had just sent some Sagittarum and a captain against. I kind of messed up my redeploy and ended up playing right into that. But if I would have played on his weak front with one unit of Vertus Praetors, I think I probably could have got much closer. It was like a 20-point swing. So I don't know if I would have necessarily won the game as close as tightly as he played it. But there would have been a couple more points. I think there would have been at least two more grind them down points I could have got. I think my Achilles Dreadnoughts would have been a little bit more better supported, because they kind of came in on that same weak flank trying to cap. Like, once I kind of realized my mistake, I ended up throwing both the units of Achilles, both Dreadnoughts on that side to try to. The issue was they were wading through warriors at that point. On that flank, he had a unit kind of spread out to kind of screen and keep board control. And between the Sagittarum and them, they did a number on the warriors. But how warriors are.
Yeah, you just can. Yeah, I've played versus that kind of list a few times, and it's really you get stuck in those waves of warriors that don't
Very
die.
sticky, yeah.
5 up. 5 up kind of.
Yep.
So
it's a very sticky list, yeah. And
so they swarm you, yeah.
Yeah, was I think I think if because I tried to swarm to one side, and he did very good in the counterpunch, but I think if I would have played him a little bit more spread out, I think I would have done better, because he really did that list he played really does rely on sort of focus firing everything, and just because it's just a lot of small arms fire mostly. He's got the Silent Kings with the plinths, the floating super guns, and those catacomb barge lords, or command barge lords. They good counterattack stuff, but generally I think if I would have spread them out and kind of forced him to kind of go toe-to-toe, unit to unit, I think it would have went better. I think I probably, I think that would have been the path to victory. But I made the mistake of kind of going all in on one side, and I think he's just that, he's a good enough player to know how to deal with that. I think if I would have split up the units of Vertus Praetors, I think I would have been able to kind of find those holes, a little bit easier, because we both kind of played asymmetrically, and he had a better setup for that than I did in that particular matchup. So I think that was probably my primary mistake. From there, I mean, we both played it really tight, but I think that was my main mistake.
This is a very, very, very difficult list for Custodes to play against, because they have numbers, and those numbers are all OPSEC, or most of them are OPSEC, and they are difficult to wipe out, although they don't bring too much heavy firepower. With those, they will just bog you down with the numbers, and they'll just take your objectives, and it's difficult to get to their objectives. So
I mean, it can be, yeah. I mean, like, I honestly think, like, I mean, it's not a bad matchup for us. Like, I honestly think we have worse matchups. I think it was just For me, it was just a matter of not playing that particular game right. I think I got outplayed by a more experienced player. Honestly, I mean, if he would have made a couple of key mistakes in setting up that counterattack, I think my Virtus Praetors could have done it, but he just played it so tight. I mean, they do work. I mean, those units of Virtus Praetors can really do a number on pretty much anything, So it was a great game, great learning experience. I was really happy to be able to play Rich. When I went down there, I was hoping to play all the Art of War. I want to play all the Art of War guys. But then I also got to play Mark Perry. So I actually played him the previous match. So Mark Perry, he ran a Chaos list with Abaddon. Huge unit of the Sons, or not Thousand Sons, Emperor's Children, with all the the Noise Marines, with all the DACA that comes with that. So
that's a kind of new tech of the Noise Marines.
Yeah, I kind of underestimated him a little bit because they're strength 4, 0 AP, but he can do Veterans of the Long War. He can do double shoot with them. So even against 2-up saves, I was losing Virtus Praetors to these guys because he was just rolling 80 dice, at a time.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
Emperor wouldn't be pleased.
So, and then, you roll that crappy roll, and suddenly there goes a Virtus Praetor and a half of, on 15 saves or something. So, I struggled a little bit, but I ended up, that was a game where I was thankful that I committed my Virtus Praetors in the way that I did. I think if I would have tried to spread out, he probably would have won. But the fact was that I kind of knew that he had kind of a Death Star thing. And he had less combat than I did, so I knew I had to punch hard into it, and I had to get to those characters, and I had to get to those characters first. So that game really panned out for me. It was kind of cagey in the beginning. We were kind of maneuvering around some center terrain, but then when I committed hard into it and was able to kill Abaddon and his Demon Prince, I think, if I remember right, and his little character bubble there. And then that was pretty much the game for me. He had some other Deep Striker stuff that kind of went sideways for him as well. The Sadatarum were really good. I was really impressed with the Sadatarum. They killed a bunch of things that game. They were doing hot on their rolls. Killed like a Dreadclaw drop pod and like a whole unit of Marines, which is great.
Sagittarium is a great unit.
Yeah, I love them. They're doing really good for me. I think a lot of people are enjoying the Sagittarium with the new buffs and stuff. I think long awaited. I think definitely necessary. I love the fact that they're great troop choices. So really happy with the way that they played. Really happy with the way that I played the game. I thought I did pretty good. I didn't. There wasn't anything during that game that I was like, gosh, I should have done this, that, or that better. But in hindsight, when we looked at it, it was like, however, that kind of center charge that I did that pretty much broke his army and killed Abaddon and everyone. Like, there was a few little contingencies in that could have gone wrong. That probably would have cost me the game hard. So it was one of those games where, like, I took the risk and it paid off big for me. But it could have gone differently. So it was one of those games, like, I had to really kind of think about after and go, okay, how do I is there ways that I could have improved that or mitigated that risk even better, to kind of get the same result, but with a little bit less,
That was the lion within you.
Yeah.
The instinct to go for a kill.
Yeah, man.
Good. What secondaries are you taking lately with that army, and what? Because I had rethink of my secondary choices. So
those two tournaments I actually really struggled with more than usual. I struggled with Linebreaker, and I struggled with Grind Them Down. And I think because this was the first time that I've really played, these were the first games that I really played without Caladius tanks. So the Caladius tanks had kind of a twofold function for me with those particular secondaries. One was it was taking down the screens, So the Caladius tanks really helped me kind of punch holes in screens and stuff to get those behind, and line breaker points. But then also just grind them down because they could engage those pickup units in the early turns. It was easy for me to get ahead in the kill more. And then once, I didn't struggle too much, in the later turns to grind them down. It was just in those opening turns, where I'm essentially relying on the Sagittarum and the Virtus Praetor salvo launchers to do that work for me. It kind of, depending on the matchup, and like the Necrons especially, was a really bad matchup for me to score grind them down with that particular list. I think if I would have done the 2 Caladius tanks, I would have been able to pull it off a little bit easier. There was some target, he had some 5-man units, and he had like a one vehicle, things like that I think I would have picked up a little bit easier, but I ended up just going hard on the Warriors right off the bat, and that kind of sunk some of my line breaker stuff. And then he did really good, honestly, in the mid game of keeping up and grind them down and focusing on certain units to make sure that he was killing at least 1, maybe 2 units. And then, of course, when the Silent King got involved, it was very rough from that point on. So those were 2 secondaries that I kind of rethought a little bit, and unfortunately, I didn't really have a lot of good other options. The other issue that I ran into was scoring the line breaker with the dreadnoughts, because a lot of times they would come in and they'd want to be going after targets, but it was just like they were the only units I had in that vicinity, so it kind of leashed them in a little bit, which I didn't like. So I've actually made a different list that I plan on playing for these next 3 GTs. I've also taken into account some of the smite spam stuff, smite spam stuff that has been kind of becoming more prevalent. Now that I think initially people were like, after they kind of took those initial nerfs, I think people kind of got away from it, but I think there's some people gravitating back towards it. I think we're going to see a little bit more of it now.
Yeah, I'm actually a bit. One of the things that I really miss about 8th edition is at least choosing your warlord traits before the game, or that would help us a bit, because then you could
find or something. Yeah. So now that we can't do that, that would have been nice, but I have taken into account that my new list has as a collective
Sisters of Silence, maybe.
Yeah, two five lady units of Sisters of Silence. So I actually played. I played a list, and I actually won an RTT. This is after the 2 GTs that I've been talking about. But I played a list with 2 units of Sisters of Silence, a Calexis, the 2 dreadnoughts and some things. I dropped the unit of Virtus Praetors basically to take all this, and then I took 2 Caladius tanks as well. So I dropped a bunch of stuff. I dropped down one of the bike captains to an Alaris captain. I dropped a whole unit of Virtus Praetors. I dropped a bunch of Miseria Cordias. What else did I drop? I think I dropped an Androthic Destructor or something like that. So that picked me up a bunch of stuff. So like I said, I have to look at let me see if I can pull up the list here.
So basically sisters would give you a chance to, stop those smites, because they cannot be targeted, right? And the smite says it has to be the first target. So if you put them in front, this means they cannot smite your troops or your army.
Right.
I know that people done it with so that they taken 1 rhino as well, or 1 unit of girls and 1 rhino, or maybe 2 units of girls and 1 rhino, because rhino is also a great sponge for those smites.
Yeah. So I did find out that I did have an overpointed list, and I did take care of it. I contacted the local TO that I used the list. The local TO whose tournament I used the list at, and we kind of sorted things out. So,
okay,
so that worked out. It was just a
I just included the Calexis Assassin without accounting for the points. So I played with a list that was about 100 points. 100 points over 2,000, which, is pretty sizable. So I did the right thing and returned the winnings and such, and informed the front line about it. So we'll see what happens. I don't expect it to be much of an issue. I have no idea how I made that issue. It's weird because when we were talking about it, I picked up on it like almost intuitively as we were talking about it. Yeah, I mean from the last from that last portion, and it's weird that I didn't catch it before. I mean, it was strange that I caught it when I was not even going through a list, and it like came to mind. So yeah, that's that. So I made some corrections and additions, some changes to the list that I used successfully in that RTT. I don't know if it would have made that much of a difference, honestly, if I had dropped the Praetor. I was like 100 points ahead of the other guy, the second place winner in battle points. So I mean, like, I don't know if I would have done worse. I mean, I think the mechanic of the list is pretty well established. I think it's pretty much the same. But this new list that I have set up, I actually include a Telemon Dreadnought.
Yay, Telemon. I'm just interested about the loadout of the Telemon.
Yeah, so the Telemon is a really popular guy, obviously. And I've been a little bit averse to using him, partly just for that reason. Not a lot of people, but it seems like anytime I post a list, there's at least one guy who's trying to run up and tell me it's not meta and it's terrible competitive, and whatever, and I'll go and win an RTT or something with it, or do good at a GT, and I'll be like, okay, so I have decided to include the Telemon, and part of the reason why I haven't is just because I think part of my
category like phone or command like points of interest followed by a brand name.
Sorry, I'm sitting in my Jeep right now, or my Nissan right now, and
cancel voice.
That's a good place to have a podcast recorded.
Yeah, no joke. So I think some of my success has been due to not playing into the meta. I think I bring some lists to the table that people don't expect, and that gives me a little bit of an advantage, especially against top tier players who spend a lot of time preparing to fight different meta factions. And I think a lot of people, when they think Custodes, top tier players, they do think Telemon, they do think Vexilla, they do think Alaris Bomb. Those are the kind of things that come to mind when they see Adeptus Custodes list, and that's the kind of prep work that they do. So then when I bring something different, a lot of Virtus Praetors or Caladius tanks, it kind of throws them off, and they have to kind of rethink how to kind of on the fly how to counter that. But in this list, I'm including a Telemon Dreadnought. So so I'll go ahead and just go through the list. So I have my standard Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jet Bike, kind of the way that I really like to run him, with the Emperor's Companion Warlord trait and the Slayer of the Unclean. And then with the Castellan's Mark now rather than the Arc Aquilus to give me that redeploy in the beginning of the game, just because there has been some matchups where it's been really, really, really effective in kind of giving me an advantage. And, he can definitely kind of play into some things, especially with the inclusion of a Telemon now. So let me back up, actually. So I'm actually running a dual patrol detachment. So I'm taking a patrol of Shadowkeepers with my Warlord, and then a patrol detachment of Dreadhost with an Alara Shield Captain. So 2 units of 3 Sagittarum as a troop choices in each. The Dreadhost Sagittarum have Misericordias, whereas the Shadowkeeper ones do not. That is not thematic. It's just it's a point thing. I would like to give them all Misericordias, but I look at. I mean, I still might. I could just drop one Adrathic Destructor and give that other unit Misericordias, because I mean, I found them to be really helpful. I had a matchup against Orcs where my 2 units of 3 Sagittarum basically just walked into a unit of Orc boys after tangle footing. I mean, pretty much killed them all. with some shooting. And
they're not so good without those knives.
Yeah, that neg 2 is just such a thing. You know, I mean, it's you know, I mean, you're looking at against Marines, you're looking at a 3-up save versus a 5-up save.
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, you are effective.
To me, it's very significant. I mean, on the flip side, though, and maybe the reason why I'm a little bit comfortable not giving both units the Misericordias is that I haven't honestly tended to use them against Marines. The armies that I use them against, I mean, I guess I did use them against Necrons to a certain degree, but I mean, like where they were really effective. I mean, it does give them an additional attack as well, so there's that to keep in mind. So maybe I will do that, but for now, the list: 2 units of 3 Sagittarum, 1 in each patrol detachment. The Dreadhost ones have the Misericordias. In the Shadowkeepers detachment, I took a unit of 5 prosecutors, Sisters of Silence with bolt guns and psych out grenades. As a screening unit / anti-psyker unit / objective holding unit. They can also, you know, I mean, in a pinch, they can do some work on a psyker, you know, with 15 shots. I mean, it's a CP strat to use, but it can be nice to just kind of surprise a guy if he's got like a. And also
a tip: if you get tangled in melee, you can use a stratagem of theirs -1 to hit for everything within, I think, 6 inches.
Yeah,
this is pretty good stratagem as well.
It's really good, actually. Yeah, I really like that stratagem. I like the deny any psychic power in a 3+ within 18 inches, which is really good. And then also, I lost my train of thought there. There's another one. -1 to hit, 3-up deny, the shooting the psychers. I think that might have been it. Just the 1 unit of them unlocks a lot of those things that can be really useful against certain matchups. And if you're not playing a psycher heavy army, that's fine. They're still a great screening unit, you know, with a 3-up save. They're not bad. They can tank some small arms fire if they're in cover, you know, especially. You know, like I said, they're really good at screening for things like Virtus Praetors. You know, they give an extra layer of protection if I want to screen out Sagittarum for something. You know, they're really good against smite spam, better than a Calexis just by himself, because they can cover a lot more space. You know, you're looking at a Calexis who, you know, effectually has a 1 inch and a half, you know, kind of range of where he's kind of covering. Sisters of Silence, 5 of them spread out, you can cover more. You can cover almost 15 inches, you know, like 13 inches or something like that. If you spread them out 2 inches apart in coherency, counting the base, you know, you can cover a fairly sizable plane that makes it really hard for them to kind of get around. Like with just a Calexis, if, you know, you play it right, you can kind of go around the wing of the Calexis and get closer to a different enemy unit and then smite them, you know. But with 5 Sisters of Silence spread out, you can put a lot of units behind that screen, and basically they'd have to go past the threshold of that line to actually be closer to any unit behind them. That's not necessarily true if you just have one model. You know, if he can push out to a side and, you know, be 19 inches away from that Calexis, but now he's, you know, 16 inches away from your corner line, he can do that smite spam. So I find them very useful for that reason. Like I said, I like the stratagems that they unlock. I think they really bring a lot to the table just for 1 CP here and there. And then I have the standard Caladius grav tank with the twin Iliasus accelerator cannon and the twin Lastrum bolt cannon. I'm a little bit on the fence. I always waffle on the which Caladius grav tank to take if I only take one, because it is such a knife's edge. I've been thinking on Death Guard a lot, and it's almost pushed me over to just reverting to just Blaze Cannon all the time. You know, because Marine meta has kind of sunk a little bit. I've noticed that less people are playing Marines, and you know that 2 damage Iliasus accelerator cannon is great for picking up those backfield, you know, 5-man units of intercessors and things. Really good for that. but if you fight things like AdMech or things like that, a lot of times it's kind of losing some of that efficacy. I mean, now that I think about it, I do think I'm making the right decision by going with the Iliastus, as far as just because the main reason for this tank is to basically make sure that I can punch holes in his screens so that I can deep strike my Dreadhost behind his, and in the line breaker zone, and my Calexis as well, so I can get line breaker points and probably and teleport homer as well. I think I'm committing to playing for teleport homer with this list in the next 3 tournaments or so. I was kind of finicking about. I kind of wanted to initially kind of go in with 3 different lists and play different lists, but I don't really see the need for that. I've kind of the only other list that I would like to play kind of have me reverting back to kind of what I've already played with, like the Ares gunship, 3 Caladius tanks. I had some really good success with the 2 5-man squads of Adeptus Praetors, so I'd possibly go back to that. The only thing I haven't really flushed out yet is kind of the Alaris bomb, but that's already kind of really been flushed out anyways by the wider Custodes community. That's been played repeatedly.
I wanted to note you are closer to foot slogging Custodes than you ever were. So many foot sloggers. Incredible.
It's just as close as I've ever been. So I mean, I've been sort of making that transition, I guess, and it's great because I've really kind of gotten a lot of experience with all the support stuff, the Dreadnoughts, the Caladius tanks, the Adeptus Praetors, and maybe one day I'll be playing a very standard Custodes list.
I don't think so. I don't see a list without Adeptus Praetors.
Yeah, I love the Adeptus Praetors. I do. But I don't know. There might be a time for me to get some more reps in with the Alaris bomb. I might just do that for maybe one of the tournaments that I go down when I go down south. I might make an Alaris bomb list. But I would really like to make this kind of list work. I really kind of want to invest in figuring out teleport homer and really just getting consistent with my secondaries, because I think just being able to play the same 3 secondaries every game, bar none, and just know how to do it, I think would be really great. A great competitive move. It gives me all kinds of more thinking space in the opening games to just focus on deployment and tactical things rather than trying to figure out what's the most efficient secondary on the basis of the list that I'm looking at. I can just don't even have to think about that. I can just go straight into deployment and figuring out what I want to do with the Castellan's Mark and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I have a question about the Castellan's Mark and Telemon, because you can move Telemon as well, right? Because that's any Custodes unit.
Any Custodes unit, yeah. So
that's a bit of a nice combo here, because the main kind of minus of having Telemon is that once you commit him on the board, opponent can deploy, so you cannot see anything with him, but you can it's the slowest thing in your list probably, except the foot sloggers, but you can move him and then place him better, so to say, or correct your mistake, or catch opponent off guard maybe.
Yeah, and that is something I've considered as well. The other thing I thought of is just putting him in the deep strike. Deep strike all the time.
So you have one fist and one Iliastus, or?
Yeah, so I went with the Cassis and I actually went with the Storm Cannon. I like the Storm Cannon.
Storm Cannon, okay.
Yeah, because you can, I looked at the profile, and I like the Caladius tanks, but for basically 50 more points, you get a ton. I mean, you get a 4-up. Your saves both get improved by 1. You have a 2-up, 4-up. Yeah. -1 damage across the board, which is really great against anything that's damage 2, which is a lot of these days. He's got just the fact that he can punch in combat, and he punches crazy good. I mean, he's got 5 base attacks. I honestly might switch him over to Dreadhost, but I like to be able to just -1 strength.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's toughness 8. He's toughness 8 rather than toughness 7. Yeah. I mean, there are not
I played with Telemon in every game since I started playing Custodes, and he nearly never dies. I think that I maybe lost him in one game. Even if a whole my army was wiped out, he stayed. It's just a thing that if opponent concentrates fires on him, somewhere mid game he will notice that it doesn't make any sense because he will not kill the dreadnought. So he just leaves him and he does his thing. It's just a space. So there is one only maybe a thing he can do is surround him with some cheap troops. With a lot of them, like 20 Necron warriors, maybe you can swarm him and then survive for longer time. I don't think that there are many other things that can do that.
Well, I mean, pound for pound, he has better shooting output than a Caladius tank. So he's putting out with his in combat. Even he's getting 6 shots with the Arachnid Storm Cannon on secondary profile. He's getting 5 with the Talamon Cassius, which is 11. 5 with the Spiculus, 6 with the Arachnid Storm Cannon. So that's 11 versus 14 from a Caladius.
Remember that the missile launcher, if you didn't move, shoots double the amount.
Yeah.
So assuming that you are in the fight, so you will not move, then you will just shoot 10 shots, right? So
exactly. So he gets more shots. He's got more combat ability. His stats are just better across the board. I hesitated a little bit, but I think combined with the Castellan's Mark, he can be a really strong piece for my army. I would like to use him more, so that's kind of my plan. But I think I honestly, in thinking, I think I'm going to move him to moving him to the Deep Strike. I am considering dropping one of the Achilles dreadnoughts and just taking a couple of more bikes because I hate feeling shy on the bikes. 4 Vertexbreakers I've found is just not quite enough. 5 to 6 is kind of where I
I think five is a minimum, right?
Yeah, I mean it is because you lose 1 and suddenly you're looking at 12 attacks and you're you lose 2 and you're down to 2 and it's just like I'd rather have 5 and maybe be able to take 2 and 3 can still do some stuff, significant stuff against power units and things, but 4 it's just like you lose 2 or 3 of them and then it's just like you're really sunk. So I think if I commit to putting that Telemon into Deep Strike with a Contemptor Achilles and my Alaris Captain and the Calexis as kind of the 4 units that I'll put into Deep Strike for Line Breaker, and I take out that Achilles and maybe actually go with, because 180 is 90. So I need another 10. So if I drop one of the Adrathic Destructors on the Achilles, I could take a bike and then maybe even a Palace Grav might be useful as well as an additional unit. The only issue I have with that, rather than an additional bike, is just it makes it a little bit harder to grind them down. Grind them down starts kind of looking a little bit more of an issue. But but the Palace Grav is another great screening unit, and it's a little bit harder to kill than something like a unit of Sisters. But that would be the other option, as well as taking is dropping the Achilles, taking another unit of Sisters, or bumping that one up to 10. And then trying to figure out, because that would leave me with like 40 points or something like that, which is not great. I do have 5 more Sisters I could put together potentially, and maybe knock those 2 units up to 7. But beyond that, I'm kind of looking at spamming Misericordias at that point, which is not ideal. What do you think as far? I mean, Palace Grav. I like Palace Grav. They're not getting a lot of use, but it's kind of a niche thing.
Yeah, I mean, I like Palace as an idea. It's like this harassing unit, and maybe because it's a kind of small tank. I always expect from him a bit more than he is supposed to do, because that's 95 points now, so not a lot, but it's just 2 shots, and I usually miss one or don't do damage with one, and then it's just 1 shot that goes in, and it's 3 damage flat, right?
It can be a little bit underwhelming at times.
Yeah, it's.
But I mean, he is a 95-point model.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like my bias, maybe that I'm. Yeah, exactly. But it's 8 wounds. It's more than Virtus Praetors, and the same toughness. Worse save
twice
because
the wounds. Yeah, crappier saves though. So it's a 3 up 5 up versus a 2 up 4 up, but you get twice the wounds. But the problem with that is that doesn't really matter, especially when you're fighting, multi-melta spam, because they get 1 shot through, they're going to kill it. It's just going to be like dying, like a Virtus Praetor dying, which is fine, I guess, because it's about the same amount of points. But I was thinking more, like, honestly, more as a screening unit to kind of flush out some more deep strikers, kind of prevent the alpha strike, and to just be able to maybe pick up early game objectives, with that extra speed and movement that he can bring to the table. The only issue I don't like doing that with, I don't like doing that simply because it's just an easy grind them down point. That counters my grind them down. So I'm already kind of a little bit vulnerable to that by taking the prosecutors and the Sagittarum in such small units. Another option would be that wouldn't really be a great option. I was going to say taking instead of the 180, taking Pyrothite Spear, a 3-man Pyrothite Spear unit that I've taken before, but I don't like to use them other than a deep strike. And the reason why I'm considering dropping one of the Contemptor Achilles Dreadnoughts is for that very reason, is that I won't be able to deep strike both of them and the Telemon. I only deep strike 2 Dreadnoughts. So part of me says it's fine. The Telemon can start on the board, and he can walk up, and just
usually nobody will stop him.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of synergies and things, and there's a lot of matchups where I would probably want to deep strike the Telemon rather than an Achilles, but that might just be more my play style these days.
Yeah, I know you can try it out, because the moment that there are a lot of players that haven't faced Telemon, or maybe not a lot, but some players haven't faced Telemon, and they think they can take him down like any other Dreadnought, and that's not the case.
Right.
So he will then draw fire, and if he doesn't draw fire, this means he will just go where he wants to go, and if they ignore him, then you have free reign of wherever he's going, right? So you can go towards their objective, and they have to try to kill him, right? And it's not an easy task to do.
It is not. No, it is not. He's a tough cookie, and I like that. But there's a lot of people who know how to kill him. Like I said, I am feeling the lightness of the Virtus Praetors, and I'm trying to figure out, and I think the only real option is to cut one of the Achilles. But I like having those Achilles, especially for all the flat 3 damage stacka that they put out. My Virtus Praetors have at times been underwhelming. My Achilles Dreadnoughts have not yet failed me. People say the same thing about the Telemon, so I'm kind of looking at it going, maybe I need to be more Dreadnought oriented in my tactica and thinking, and kind of resign myself to the reality that, maybe for this list, I use the Virtus Praetors in more of a support role rather than trying to use them as the main hammer, which might be better off anyways, especially the way that I have this list set up. I am kind of, I took the, I don't know what your opinion on is taking the Alaris captain as the Dreadhost versus the Bike captain. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but you mean to teleport him in, right? The Alaris captain.
Yeah, that is the idea. I mean, giving them Admani Mortis really helps a lot as well. I mean, just having more flat 3 damage stuff where you can just lop up some blade guard or things like that. That triple threat of him and 2 Achilles Dreadnoughts, or him and the Telamon and Achilles Dreadnought with a Calexis kind of hanging out with them as well, I think is just it's a really good combination. But I'm kind of trying to fine tune that and kind of looking at that going, okay.
Yeah, for me the issue is that I tried that tactic, dropping and rolling 3d6 to make a charge, and I cannot roll a 9 with the 3 dice, even with a reroll, to save my life. So I dropped that. So I dropped that tactic
I'll try to pick up the other side of that average.
Yeah, exactly.
In these tournaments, so I'll try to even out your even out the statistics for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm making all my charges. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
So I changed my tactic to to start on the board and push from there. And when I use Deep Strike, I rather count on. I don't count on making the charge. If I do it, it's a bonus. I rather try to do kind of alpha beta strike, depending on when I drop them.
Right.
Just so they cannot expect and cannot hide too well to everything. So I cannot give you any tips on good deep strike tactics, because mine suck. Meaning the charging after deep striking.
Yeah, no worries.
I mean, I did it when I played with Space Marines early last year.
Yeah.
Because they had +2 from the chaplain usually, so that's easy then to make a charge. But
yeah, +2 re-rolling charges does seem a little bit better than 3d6 take the highest and re-rolling charges for some reason. But I honestly don't think it's that much different.
No, statistically it's not. But
you're looking at a 50-50 shot of rolling a 6. And if you get a 6, you just need a 3. So, it's not, they're not bad odds. It's something like 66%, I think.
I think it's even more. I think it's around 70% to make the charge with a reroll. With a reroll, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I think I'm going to stick with it. I think I'm just going to go focus on the Achilles, putting the Achilles in the Alpha Strike as the Alpha Strike, and then just playing the Virtus Praetors more in support of the Telamon, because I think with the Telamon on the field, next to Virtus Praetors, he's going to have to split fire, or he's going to have to focus fire, and if he split fires, it's going to go bad, but he's going to have to try to focus fire on one of the other 2 units, and regardless of which one gets shot at, I think I'd be in pretty good shape, and that would leave the Caladius Grav Tank as well to pretty much be ignored the whole time. And then, with this list having both the Shield Captain and the Calexis, I can afford to run my Achilles out of the line breaker zone, and they can go mid-board if needed. One of the problems I was really running into, I think I mentioned this earlier, was them getting sort of caught into the line breaker, where I have to I want to chase down targets and take objectives or clear objectives in combat, or neutralize threats are going to shoot me off the board if I don't, but I'm not getting line breaker points now because I have to charge out of their deployment zone to do that.
Yes.
So having the redundancy, I think, especially since I think playing into that, I think it's going to be the best way to go. I hate kind of there's a lot of lists, especially Psyker heavy lists, where I might not play Teleport Armor just because, Psychic Abomination or Pour the Witch is such an easy gimme, especially the Calexis base. So that might be the exception to the rule. But other than that, I've found that the Calexis is very underwhelming as a unit, except for the buffs that he brings to the table. The 2CP Soul Horror strat's really good. I can see me using that in the pinch for a turn, sacrificing some of those teleport homer points to fight first with if I do bomb a charge, with both my Achilles and my and my Alaris captain, and they're all just kind of standing there in front of a bunch of blade guard or something, and my Calixis is right there, you can do that soul horror stratagem. As long as I have the CP, that's the other thing. The CP economy is going to be a little bit tough. So I'll spend 3 CP to put them in, and then I'll have the 1 CP to start. So I have to be careful, because with Golden Light of Moriatis, if I spend 2, that'll leave me with just 1 CP going, or actually, no, I should be fine, because I'll have a CP to start.
Yeah.
So I'll go down to 2. I'll go up to 3 in turn 1, and then when I deep strike in, I'll have 4 in turn 2. I can do Golden Light of Moriatis. That'll leave me with 2 points to kind of edge me in. I'll just have to be really cautious to decide whether or not I'll probably have to, save the captain's charge for last, because he's the only one who I would CP reroll potentially. So if like both my Achilles get in, I can use that CP then to get that reroll, because they're going to fight first.
Yeah. The Achilles have their built-in reroll, right? I mean, you paid for the.
I did pay for Eternal Penance.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they're going to both get the reroll to charge coming in on that Alpha Strike. It's just, I would like to save a CP for my Shield Captain as well, so he can also reroll the charge, so that I'm getting the most out of that Golden Light of Moriatis, paying 2 CP. Essentially, I get 3 units rather than just 1 unit. So all 3 of those units are affected by that. So I might as well keep a CP to get him a reroll as well if he needs it. So that all 3 of those units, I mean, there's not a lot that's going to be able to hold up against those 3 units charging. Obviously he can interrupt, which would be potentially an issue. But because they're so compact, I think for the most part, surgically speaking, unless I'm trying to charge a wall of Blood Angels or something, I think for the most part they should be able to, between their shooting attacks as well, kind of mitigate the damage enough so that it won't matter if he interrupts. I'll take take a few wounds on one of my Contempt or Achilles, or a few wounds on my captain, and then they'll all fight anyways and do the work. So
that should be fine.
Yeah, I do like the way this list is shaping up. What do you think of the Virtus Praetors being as part of the Dreadhost rather than the Shadowkeepers?
Yeah, I find that with Toughness 6, there are not many things that they need to that extra -1. There was occasionally in times of Salamanders when they used a lot of aggressors. I found it useful then to lower their strength to 3. So they wounded on 6s with stratagems. They could do it with 5s. Then that saved me a lot of bikes.
Right.
But I don't see so many aggressors anymore. So
what do you think about what about this option? So dropping in the Achilles Dreadnought, so that'll give me an extra CP. Getting 2 more Virtus Praetors after dropping an additional 10 points, either with Misericordias, or I can just drop in a Dradic Destructor. And then just planning on putting those Virtus Praetors in Deep Strike.
Yeah, with 6 bikes, right?
Six bikes and an Achilles Dreadnought, along with the Bike Captain and the Calexis Assassin. It's a little bit stronger as an Alpha Strike, I would say, especially if the Captain gets in and also annihilated the unit.
Then you have almost 1,000 points in reserve, or close to. Yeah.
Force. So
probably you don't cross over the 1,000. It's just you have much smaller presence on the board, and you have to survive that first round, or maybe second if you don't start. That might be
about
challenging, probably.
Yeah, it's about a third. It's about 700 points.
I
went with a 5-man unit, and I went with a 5-man unit and took took something else. Palace Grab or a unit of Sisters, up to Prosecutors.
Then fine.
Took some Misericordias. Yeah. I'll maybe that'll be the minor change that I make. Maybe that'll be the change in the list that I make. So if I keep this list, I play this list for a tournament. Then I play a list with a couple more Virtus Praetors, drop one of the Achilles, make some minor changes that way. And then just kind of, maybe play with an extra unit of Prosecutors, and then play with a Palace Grav, and just mix it up that way rather than that additional Achilles, and see which one does best. I think that.
Then you have to always hold the CP for reroll of the charge of the bikes, right? Because I'm terrified for my bikes not making a charge from deep strike. It's just them sitting somewhere in the backfield of my opponent where he can point every single gun in them and then make a charge if they don't kill them with shooting.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the issue with the bikes. Is that, if I do fail that charge and they whiff with their salvo launchers, that's an issue. But that's a lot of bad rolling, and that could potentially happen anyways if I just started them on the board. I mean, they can, against a lot of AdMech armies, they can pretty much, depending on the terrain and things, there's a lot of situations where they're pointing every gun at them anyways.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I would like to try it. I don't deep strike my Virtus Praetors very often, mostly because they're already within range of line breaker within turn 2. You move up 14 inches.
Yeah.
You do some shooting. You move another 14 inches plus a charge. Usually, I mean, that's 28 inches plus an average of 7. You're looking at 35 inch, range. That's well within your enemy's deployment zone. So a lot of times it's kind of like deep striking doesn't make a ton of sense because you're losing a turn of shooting basically. And if you have good terrain, you can be surgical and prevent them from getting shot at by everything. And you can just choose your target by picking an angle on the terrain and going from there.
I'm a bit jealous how consistently you can make points with that line breaker. I have tried it like 3 times and it went terrible for me. It was always something killed one of the units, or I couldn't deep strike, or I couldn't get there. It's just I just cannot take that secondary. It's off my list.
Yeah.
But I guess you concentrate on it, right? That's the experience. You concentrate to make yourself a spot and teleport a small footprint unit somewhere in the backline.
I really think that the contingencies, there's a couple of contingencies. One, it's the pressure that the Virtus Praetors bring to the table. I play a lot of foot custodes lists, and there's not a lot of forward pressure with them. You have sort of the long bomb Vexilla running up the middle with his advance, trying to get that 6-inch advance roll to get as far up as possible and then kind of drop that unit in. But beyond that, there's not a lot of kind of like forward pressure. And I think that's what really makes that's what gives me that leverage, is having the Caladius tank in the back, clearing screens and putting pressure on by just being able to shoot at anything. And then having the Virtus Praetors move into the center hard and fast, also shooting things. I think that combination creates enough pressure so my opponent knows he can't afford to redirect. And then what I do have dropping things, it's 2 Achilles Dreadnoughts. It's not 2, like the initial punch is 2 Achilles Dreadnoughts, that are also hard to kill. So it's kind of a triple threat. And there's a lot of people lists that just it's so surgical and it's so pointed in that they are all power units and they all can kind of take what they hit. Opponent has to really kind of plan out contingencies and counterattacks to really be able to deal with it, or do they just fold under it? There's a lot of armies that just kind of fold under this, a lot of list builds that'll just fold under this style of play. Especially if the player himself is not extremely competitive. If he's new to tournament, or he's not just in a competitive mindset, it's going to be a lot of pressure on his thinking to have to threat allocation, which units do I shoot at, how do I and a lot of errors are made under that pressure that can be can be kind of turned into points. So I think if I was playing a foot custodes list more centric, absolutely the line breaker would be 10 times harder to get, because you are deep striking more fragile units. And even if you're not, like if you're doing the Alaris bomb and you don't have anything to clear the screens. You're wading through the screens, and you're limiting an already limited axis of advance, only having a 6-inch move. There's only so many ways you can go with an Alaris blob, and especially if you're trying to score primary points, it's just like, that's not a great move either to try to get line breaker. I think the only way to do line breaker for the Adeptus Custodes is with smallest units you can possibly take. 2 dreadnoughts, 2 characters. One character is super hard to kill, only being able to get on hit 6s, 5 wounds, 4 up invul. And then the other character is also really hard to kill. Toughness 5, 7 wounds, 2 up, 4 up, and then a beat stick in combat as well. It does present a lot of dynamics, and then overshadowing that is the 2 Achilles dreadnoughts. So those 2 characters are probably not going to get targeted, even if they could, because you just drop 2 Achilles dreadnoughts with them. Who now have the freedom to really create overpressure in the backfield, so that those 2 characters can just go and hide in a ruin and just score line breaker points.
Exactly.
Do teleport homer and just sit there for 4 turns and do that, and score 27 points of secondaries, while your Achilles are just running around wreaking havoc, and your Virtus Praetors and your Telemon are coming up the middle to support them, and your Sagittarum are blasting away downfield, and your Prosecutors are hanging out on your backfield objective, within reach of the Sagittarum if something comes back there to try to mess things up, and then obviously also with the Virtus Praetors being able to quickly redeploy to take out backfield kind of infiltrators and things. So it's a very tight list. You have to, and I think for a lot of people, there is a sense of like redundancy, of like, this is kind of played the same way every time. Like your opponent kind of already knows exactly what you're doing, kind of thing. And that, and that's kind of a 2-edged sword, on the one hand, it kind of makes it easy to anticipate what exactly I'm going to do, but it's also something that I can get a lot of repetitions in doing really consistently, which generally speaking will lead to my opponent overthinking things or underestimating the move. It's so simple in a lot of ways that it makes it really easy to underestimate, and makes it seem like it's really easy to just, that'll be easy to, I'll just screen out this, that, or the other. And it's just like, and people can, start getting sloppy on that. And then that's where, the Caladius tank comes in with the Telemon support and the Virtus Praetors. Suddenly I've poked a hole in the screen just big enough to get those characters in and those dreadnoughts in. And now suddenly he's, his flappiness is kind of paying dividends for the Custodes. So I like this list. I do like the addition of Telemon. Like I said, I'm kind of apprehensive about playing the Telemon just because there's so much out there who, people know about it. And, it's I like the synergies of, the Dreadhost bring to the table, but I think this is, playing the double patrol is kind of a new thing. I don't think I've seen any other Adeptus Custodes player in tournament play a double patrol and 2 shield hosts. So it'll be really interesting.
No, it's not very popular choice.
I haven't seen it at all. Yeah.
CPE expenditure. I only heard about it in podcasts or maybe online, but I haven't faced it or seen the list succeed anywhere. So
I haven't even heard, I'd be interested in hearing some of those podcasts if you have, you can find them.
Yeah, I think I can find this one of the older ones, but I think I can dig it out. But
yeah, no problem.
I think we can slowly wrap up for today. It's I think that list has a lot of room for success, and the thing with Custodes is that it is an elite army, and it always be a bit transparent what we are trying to do. Whether you have a foot Custodes, then you'll be defending more, and if you have more mobile, then you'll be coming in. We don't have so much room for doing different things, right? Because we have so few units,
maximize right? That, yeah. With the Castellan's Mark and the double patrol,
exactly,
is trying to maximize the options, because I love the being able to neg one strength that tell him on heavy dreadnought. That's kind of a centerpiece.
That's really nasty.
Take some heat off the Virtus Praetors, but then also be able to deep strike with 2 Dreadhost Terminators or 2 Dreadhost Dreadnoughts that are just gonna wreck shop. Especially with All-Seeing Annihilator, man. I mean, when they roll a couple of 6s to hit, and suddenly they went from 6 to 8 attacks, like that's a big deal. Especially when you're chunking into things like Plague Burst Crawlers and stuff. That's potentially another 12 damage that you just roll. So like, to me, it's a great synergy that I look forward to exploring a little bit in these upcoming weeks here.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan. So good luck in upcoming tournaments. We'll meet up. We'll meet up after some of them. We'll make up a schedule for that. Okay. And we'll talk about how it went and what further tweaks you did to the list.
Yep, it sounds great. Sounds great, Marcin.
Okay. Thanks a lot for today.
Yes, sir. Thanks again.